Today's headline is a triumph for medicine. The subheadline says, How a Physician Accidentally Gave a Very Fortunate Dose. It says, Did you ever give a man the wrong medicine, Dr. McPherson? I asked him as we sat chatting in my snuggery, and the famous doctor treated me to many curious reminiscences of his early career. I should think that most medical men must make slips of that kind, at least once in a lifetime. McPherson shook his head. I do not remember doing so, but I once gave a man an overdose of a drug for a sleeping draught, which nearly killed him. It was his own fault, though, as you will see when I tell the story. It was when I was quite a young man, and soon after I started a practice of my own at Chelsea. On the night, however, when my adventure happened, I was summoned by a boy to attend a case in a street about half an hour's walk from my house. I put on my overcoat and started, carrying with me a few things on the chance that they might be necessary, including a strong soporific, which I might have to use if I found my patient in great pain, which I could not immediately relieve. I had concluded that my services were made necessary by some accident, and used as much haste as possible, therefore, in getting to the address which the boy had given me, and which I had copied down in my pocketbook before he went away. As I approached the house, I was surprised to find it in complete darkness, and could not help wondering whether I had been made the victim of a practical joke, especially when my ring of the bell remained unanswered. I had expected to find the house lighted up, and everybody on the alert awaiting my appearance, and I was prepared with an apology for my intrusion when I heard steps descending the stairs and coming along the hall in answer to my second ring. The door was opened by a genial-looking old gentleman in a flowered dressing gown who carried a lamp in his hand, and his first words set my mind at rest as far as my fears of a hoax were concerned. "Oh, you are the doctor, I suppose," he said. "Will you walk upstairs, please?" He was chatting all the while that he preceded me up the broad staircase in a voice that certainly did not show any anxiety. I was beginning to think that the young urchin I sent had played me false, and made off with my half-crown without doing anything for it, he said, and I explained that he had fetched me from 2 miles away. "I am sorry that you have had to come so far," he said politely. "I thought that he would be able to find a medical man much nearer. Surely there are some." "Yes, but your messenger did not appear to know of them," I answered, and the old gentleman murmured something about a doctor always being ready for a new patient, as he led the way into a room on the first floor at the back, and placed the lamp on the table. I glanced around the place quickly, expecting to see some sign of the person I had come to attend. The room was comfortably, almost handsomely furnished as a sitting room, and contained a cheerful-looking fire, before which 2 armchairs were drawn up, with a small table between them, containing 2 glasses, a bottle of whiskey, and a siphon of soda water, besides a box of cigars. But there was no sign of a patient. "Take your great coat off and sit down," said the old gentleman. "You can put your things on the table. I suppose you will not object to a glass of scotch and a cheroot. I can recommend the cheroots." He had seated himself in one of the armchairs as he spoke, and was filling the glasses. "Pardon me," I said in considerable astonishment, "but had I not better see the patient before I do anything else?" He looked up as if surprised at my suggestion. "Oh, I am the patient," he said placidly. I started in even greater surprise than ever, for he looked quite a picture of health, and he smiled good-naturedly. "If you will sit down, I will tell you what is the matter with me," he said as placidly as before. "I do not like to see a man standing when I am sitting, and if you do not take your coat off, you will catch a cold when you go out again. You doctors never use your knowledge to take care of yourselves." "That's better," as I obeyed wonderingly. "I am a victim of insomnia," he went on, after I had taken the other armchair. "I suffer terribly. You cannot tell what it is to stay awake all night long, while the rest of the world is asleep. Not a soul to speak to, the one living person in a city of dead. I think it will send me mad some day." "Yes, it is a great affliction," I said shortly, not a little chagrined that I had been summoned at that time of the night to a consultation which could have been held at any time. "But it can be cured in time with healthy living." "But that does not help me tonight," said my patient, pushing the box of cigars towards me. "You are suffering tonight?" I asked, with my most professional air. "Yes, I am perfectly certain that I shall not sleep a wink. It would make me feel suicidal to go to bed and try. That is why I sent for a doctor, but I am sorry you have had to come so far." "Well, it is lucky that I have brought some drugs with me," I said, opening my brief bag before me. "I will give you a sleeping draught for tonight, but you must give up drugs and live healthily, and take plenty of exercise and diet yourself, if you really want a cure." I took out the soporific I had prepared before starting as I spoke, but the old man shook his head hopelessly. "It's not the least use giving me drugs, doctor," he said. "I have saturated my system with them, and they have no effect upon me." Then may I ask why you have sent for me? I asked, feeling very much like losing my temper. Well, it's like this, doctor, he said placidly. I can't sit up all night by myself. I feel as though I should go mad if I do. I must have somebody to talk to. And you mean to tell me, I began hotly, and paused for want of words to express my indignation. My patient took advantage of the pause to proceed in his gentle, half-apologetic manner. I assure you, doctor, that I looked upon it quite as a business matter. I do not look upon a physician as a philanthropist, but as a businessman, whose chief inducement after all is to make money. May I ask what your usual fee is? My usual fee is 7 and 6 pence, I said severely. I was a modest beginner in those days, but when I am called out in the night— You make it higher, of course, put in my patient imperturbably. Shall we say 10 shillings? I nodded. And may I ask how long your visit usually takes? It varies from 5 minutes to an hour. The man performed a short calculation on his fingers. Then we may call your average visit 32.5 minutes, he said quietly. Well, I am quite prepared to pay you 10 shillings for every 32.5 minutes that you remain with me. You came in at exactly 20 minutes past 12. Allow me to pay you up till 7 minutes to 1. He gravely handed me half a sovereign as he spoke, and went on. If you prefer it, I have not the least objection to you giving me medical advice all the time you are here, although that is quite immaterial to me, so long as you talk about something and keep me from the loneliness that I dread. Do take a cigar, and help yourself to the whiskey. His tone was so businesslike and matter-of-fact that it was impossible to quarrel with him. Besides, his evident dread of being alone, which so many victims to insomnia have, appealed to my sympathies. I was not successful enough then to disregard the chance of gaining a rich and eccentric patient, the very class who make the profession worth practicing from a pecuniary point of view. I made no demur, therefore, but determined to stay at least until I had given him directions for curing his want of sleep by systematic exercise and plain living, and I lighted one of his cheroots, which were indeed excellent. At the end of half an hour, I rose to go, but my strange patient pleaded with me so earnestly to accept another fee and stay half an hour more that I scarcely had the heart to leave him. A fresh idea occurred to me. I will stay on one condition, I said, that you lie down and let me try to get you to sleep. I felt that if I could succeed in doing so, I should have done something to justify my visit, and should be able to get back to my own bed without any danger of offending a possible remunerative patient. He agreed instantly, and drew up a comfortable-looking couch to the fire in place of his chair. Now, if I will do my level best to sleep, will you promise not to leave me until I am off? He said, and feeling pretty confident in my powers, I rather unwisely consented. I began reading aloud to him in a soft, monotonous tone, which I have generally found effective, and at the end of half an hour was congratulating myself on my success when the old gentleman jumped up wide awake and, fishing in his pocket, produced another half-sovereign. I must not forget your fee, he said, as he lay back again at full length on the couch. Please go on. It's very soothing. I was getting desperately sleepy myself, and more than ever anxious to succeed and get away, when my patient roused himself again suddenly. This won't do, he said quite anxiously. If I go to sleep, how on earth shall I know what I owe you? You can trust that to me, I said shortly, and continued the reading again, with what seemed like complete success, till at 2 o'clock, my patient jumped up as lively as ever to present me with my fourth fee. The want of success made me desperate, and I was already regretting deeply the promise which prevented me leaving the old gentleman to his fate and getting home, when another thought suggested itself to me. The sleeping draught which he had refused was lying on the table before me. He admitted having taken large quantities of every known drug, but this was a very strong one, and might affect him more than he expected if I could only get him to take it. He had refused point blank before, so that I did not ask his consent, but slipped it quietly into a glass while I was reading. Perhaps another glass of whiskey will help you, I said, filling it up. Try drinking it straight off. He obeyed me without a suspicion, and took the whole dose, which of course I should not have ventured to give to anybody unaccustomed to drugs. It appeared to me to take effect very quickly, and I did not flatter myself on the point until my next fee became due, when finding that my patient did not stir, I rose softly, put on my hat and coat, and turning down the lamp, felt my way downstairs in the dark and let myself out of the house. As I walked home, I told myself that I had secured a desirable patient and had already given him some reason to have faith in my powers. The 4 half-sovereigns jingled pleasantly in my pocket, and I had still time left to get a good sleep before it was necessary to begin the day's work. But rest was not for me yet a while. As I opened my own door with a latchkey, a single glance at the hall was sufficient to put another complexion on the case, and I strode rapidly through the house to find that it had been ransacked from top to bottom. My old friend with the insomnia was simply the accomplice of a gang of burglars who had taken this means of keeping me out of the way while his friends removed the greater part of my portable property. It seemed to me as if they must have taken it away in a furniture van. I hurried at once to the neighboring police station, and the inspector in charge looked serious. It seems to me like the work of a gang that we've been hearing of for some time, but that we can't get a hold of, he said. Well, I think I could take you to the house where you'll find one of the gang, I said, and told him briefly of my patient. The policeman smiled a superior smile. He is one of the gang without doubt, as well as the lad who brought his message, but you won't find him at the house now. You'll find that he's taken the room furnished for a day or two and vanished the instant you left the place. I have no doubt that that was the plan, I said, but I happen to give the gentleman a dose, which if he isn't as used to drugs as he pretended, will keep him asleep for a week. And did you find him, I asked, when McPherson had reached this point in his story, and the famous physician nodded. Yes, exactly as I left him. I had some trouble bringing him around. As we thought, he was a notorious criminal, and his arrest led to that of the whole gang, and what was of more importance to me, the recovery of my furniture. It has often made me smile to think of my little sleeping draft affecting what the whole police force of the metropolis had been trying to do for months. I call it a triumph of medicine. This article originally came from the Pall Mall Budget. This story came from the great state of Pennsylvania. Being reported in the Philadelphia Inquirer of September 29, 1895. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, then remember before you leave to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. And we will see you next time on Americana Archives.